Owen's here then. He's been listening to some of the financial noises coming out of the Iowa caucus.
Yeah, it's obviously all of those would-be candidates and contenders and so on lining up really to give their views. The one that caught my ear particularly was Mitt Romney, who has now, it appears, just edged that first caucus, that first big test for Republican nominees, or would-be nominees, I should say. Romney's very much styled himself as the man that can fix the economy, much more of a technical manager than Barack Obama. So I think it's worth just having a listen to what he said during his speech during that Iowa caucus. Here's Mitt Romney.
Keep our tax rates competitive, get regulators and regulations to see their job is to encourage enterprise, make sure we open up new markets for American goods, and finally take advantage of the energy resources we have here in oil and gas and coal and nuclear and renewables. And also do the work of finally getting ourselves to cut our federal spending and capping how much we spend and balancing our budget.
Well, the question that people will inevitably ask voters across the US and indeed across the rest of the world will ask is, can these kind of candidates deliver on these promises? We heard there from Romney talking about balancing the national budget, various kind of things to get the US economy back on track. And I thought it was worth just picking out a few of the challenges that lie ahead for whoever wins this nomination and whoever wins the White House. Well, getting the national debt under control, of course, has been the thing that has virtually paralysed much of the debate in the US over the last few months. Remember, we've got a spiralling deficit in the US. Some $15 trillion and counting. There are demands to raise that by even more. Well, whoever wins the White House won't really have to worry about it that much, not until after the November elections, because the consensus in the US right now is they won't touch it for the time being. You've also got to remember you've got things like unemployment. Yes, it's coming down from those highs of over 9%, but it's still going to stay at around just under 9% for much of 2012. That's really too high for the world's #1 economy. And also growth keeps failing the forecasters. We had growth predictions of nearly 4% for 2012, and yet those have been revised downwards to somewhere near 3%. But, and this is a big but, the good thing for the US is it appears to be pulling ahead of the Eurozone. The growth forecasts for the Eurozone are even lower than those for the United States. So it appears that right at this moment, the world's #1 economy might just be able to push ahead during this year. And that will, of course, make the prospects for whoever's running for the White House just that little bit easier. Certainly easier than when Barack Obama inherited the White House in 2008.
Well, Wall Street looked good going into that Iowa caucus. What about the European markets? How are they looking after the opening?
A little bit flat, Stuart. Don't read too much into it. We are just really back, of course, at the start of the new year. Many investors getting down to work in earnest. Lots of thin trading volumes. So the European markets, I should say, yeah, all opening down around 0.2% or so. The Asian market's pretty choppy there as well. The Nikkei did manage to finish the day on a good high, well over 1% in the green, but you can see the rest of the Asian markets there a little bit quiet. There are more concerns in the run-up to Chinese New Year about Chinese monetary policy. Will the government relax conditions just a little bit for lenders?
OK, well, we've also had new unemployment figures for Spain and Germany showing the extent of the two-speed Europe that is developing. While Germany now has its lowest jobless figure for 20 years, Spain's has surged to a new high of 23%, the worst in the Eurozone. It's food for thought for those weighing up the pros and cons of joining the single currency and the imbalances it's created. Poland is the largest country outside the monetary union. It's supposed to sign up and ditch the zloty under the terms of its EU membership back in 2004, but finding anyone to officially commit to further integration is not easy. Our correspondent Gulliver Cragg reports in the latest of our series, marking the Euro's 10th anniversary.
Shoppers at this Warsaw market find their zlotys don't go as far as they used to.
It's bad. A bit more of this and nobody will be able to afford anything.
When the euro falls, the Polish zloty tends to fall even further, pushing up prices for imported goods.
Wholesale prices are getting higher and takings are getting lower.
Yet neither shoppers nor traders see joining an unstable euro as a solution. They feel Poland's currency independence helped it avoid the worst of the crisis.
If we enter the eurozone, then we might end up with an economic situation as bad as Greece's, Spain's, or more recently, Italy's.
Support for joining the euro has slumped in Poland. A France 24 survey in June showed 53% were opposed to adopting the currency. By November, that had risen to 74%. Yet many economists say Poland needs the stability the euro could bring.
At the moment, Polish people don't know how much they're going to pay each month in mortgage, which is largely denominated in Swiss francs or euros. The exporters benefit from devalued zloty, but they don't know exactly what the exchange rate is going to be.
While the Eurozone future is in doubt, though, that stability means little. So when asked when or if Poland will join the euro, National Bank Governor Marek Belka is understandably cagey.
It depends on what happens in the Eurozone. If the euro comes out of the crisis strong and shining, then we'll discuss this change.
Until then, it's shining new zlotys that this mint will be producing.
Look at a few more of the day's business headlines then, and the US Federal Reserve is to publish its interest rate forecast in an unprecedented move to increase its transparency. Central Bank will begin revealing its projections when its next meeting ends on the 25th of January. It means investors and policymakers will have an early start in preparing for future rises in interest rates, which have been close to zero for the last 3 years now.
And Chevron has lost an appeal over $18 billion of damages it was ordered to pay for polluting the Amazon rainforest 20 years ago. The US oil giant lost the case against a group representing 30,000 people in Ecuador. They claimed their water supply had been poisoned by subsidiary Texaco. Chevron said that after the latest ruling, it will continue to appeal to courts outside of Ecuador. Now, you know that old saying in life, the best things come in small packages. Well, it hasn't really proved the case for Tata's Nano. You'll remember it's the world's smallest car, launched a few years ago for the Indian market. It's failed to some extent to sell in the kind of numbers that were predicted, but Bajaj Auto is the latest to get into the market for small cars, and yet they call this model not a car, but a four-wheeler. Sounds confusing, doesn't it? It's a no-frills model, and it's been launched just 2 days before India's biggest and most important auto show.
This is the RE60. It weighs 400 kilograms, runs on a 200cc engine, and reaches a maximum speed of 70 km per hour. A compact car meant to rival the Tata Nano. Costing €2,000, the Nano is so far the cheapest car in the world. Bajaj Auto didn't say how much this new car will cost, but boasted its other qualities.
We have managed to engineer it such that all that it emits is 60 grams per kilometer of CO2. Typically, that is half of what the small cars currently emit in our market.
It has been Bajaj's goal for over 4 years to go from building motorbikes and rickshaws to cars. When a joint venture plan with Renault-Nissan was abandoned last year, Bajaj went ahead on its own. India is proving to be a difficult market for low-cost car manufacturers. The poor majority has little to no access to the credit necessary to purchase them. As a result, the Nano did not take off as expected. However, Bajaj hopes to capture a different slice of the market.
It's economical, it's compact, it's easy to use, etc. But our core customer is the customer that uses our three-wheeler.
Meanwhile, Renault-Nissan seems to be going in a different direction. The Franco-Japanese car maker is reportedly set to launch a more expensive vehicle, costing between €2,500 and €5,000.
And just before we go, a correction. Owen's written we were hoaxed. He was hoaxed, but we weren't the only ones, were we?
We weren't the only ones. Yes, humble pie all around, particularly mine. Yesterday, we talked about Rupert Murdoch's wife, Wendy Deng, taking to Twitter, opening an account along with her much more famous and high-profile husband, Rupert Murdoch. And yet, it was all a hoax. Now, this one's interesting because she came clean. This account user has revealed, as you can see there in that tweet, she is not the real Wendy Deng. She has come clean and said this is a spoof account. What's interesting though is this had one of the Twitter authentication ticks on it. That's what you can use to say this is a bona fide person, this is a bona fide account. How that got past Twitter and how it is authenticated remains a mystery. Twitter is unable to explain why this account was authenticated as a genuine account. News Corp as well also confirmed that this was indeed the real Wendy Deng, the wife of Rupert Murdoch. It is not her, we can tell you. It is now, as you can say. It still exists as a spoof account. She, of course, you might remember, was the lady who leapt to the defence of Rupert Murdoch when he gave evidence to the phone hacking scandal in the UK. There you go. that now
Fantastic
very
moment.
famous shot where she managed to land one on the gentleman who put a custard pie in Rupert Murdoch's face. There is speculation that this Wendy Deng account could indeed be actually orchestrated by the man who threw that custard pie at Rupert Murdoch. We've had no confirmation of that, but there we go. Okay. It does at least clear up something. If you are going to follow Wendy Deng, then be sure that be reassured it is a hoax account.
Is yours a hoax?
I'm real. Stuart's also real.
We're here,
so
honest.
If you tweet us, well, you can be sure you're getting the real deal.
All right, Owen, thanks very much. More coming up. Claire, after the break.